Yay! Hello, hello, and hello. How are we all doing? Hopefully reasonably good. Yeah, it's been a little while, hasn't it? Weeks. It feels like weeks. What was the last one we did? That Crux printer. It didn't turn out great. Anyway, so today we're taking a look at the BQ-Hurakan. I mean, yeah, my box got a little bit smashed. Hopefully it's okay. But basically this. I think there might be a bit more delay than there normally is. Oh, we're on normal latency, not ultra low latency. No. Okay, so there's going to be some like big waiting between responses and stuff today. Unfortunately, I can't really change that after the stream starts. I don't know why it changed back from what it normally is. But anyway, that's the dealio. So the big thing that people are talking about this printer is the fact that it uses klipper. Is there anything special about klipper in and of itself that makes this printer better? Not really. It's just a firmware. But firmware is well equipped for doing other things, which some other firmwares do, and sometimes it just does things a little bit easier or has more options for doing new and different things, and some configuration options are a little bit easier to deal with. But having klipper doesn't actually make a printer faster, just so you know. There's nothing inherently superior about klipper. It's just good at a lot of things. I've enjoyed using it on quite a few printers now. So yeah, it's cool to see on one of these like more budget orientated printers. This one I think is coming in around 350 monetary units, whatever that is relative in your country. Paul says he's failed to get to grips with klipper. That's interesting. I didn't find it that... it depends if you've used, I think, Duet's RepRap firmware. Because like Marlin is like a pre-configured, you like create the firmware and then you flash it to the printer and that it's kind of fixed once it's there. And then from there, I kind of moved to using Duet's firmware, where the base firmware is kind of just a text file on the printer. You access it and edit it, but it's all a lot of numbers and letters and it doesn't really make sense. You can like memorize a lot of the functions. It's very difficult to read. You have to constantly like back reference to the guide on what those instructions are. It's very similar to klipper, but a bit more difficult to configure. Whereas klipper, I think, is actually really quite easy to use. I don't know, it seems to get a bit of a reputation for being a bit kind of, I don't know, what's the word for it? I guess intimidating is kind of the word, but it has this like little bit of a culture around it for some reason. I don't really understand. I don't really feel like I'm part of that. I think it's really good though. It's just not superior. My printer is not better because it has klipper, but it can make it better with a number of the features that it does have. Okay. So the plan is to kind of do the same kind of thing we do on these live streams. We'll get it out, we'll take a look at all the electronics, which should look a little bit better than your average cheap printer. Fingers crossed. And then we'll do the setup. So the hardware, we'll do I don't know how much klipper setup things there's going to be. I don't know anything about what's about to happen in the future. All I have is this box. I've like peeked in the top and that's it. I have a fair bit of experience now with klipper. I have a rat rig printer over there, a Voron, another rat rig, another Voron, and another Voron over there. So like, all of those are running klipper. I've used klipper quite a bit, but that doesn't mean I'm like advanced or an expert at it. I've just used it a fair bit. So hopefully we can get enough instruction to make sure that there's going to be enough information for everyone else to be able to do it. Like, I'm sure eventually I could brute force my way through it if it is a bit difficult, but I'd like to make sure that it's easily accessible for everyone else too. So we've got Rushmare 3D Think here today as well, being a very nice moderator. There you go. Big thumbs up. Thank you, James, for attending. So yeah, I guess we kind of just start. It looks like my box has been opened in customs because it was not as well sealed as it was when it probably left the factory. But there you go. That's what we have to deal with. The latency, I think, is maybe like 10 or 15 seconds or something, so it's quite a while. Unfortunately, I can't change it. I think to change it, I have to end the stream and restart it, which will then like kick everyone out and make a new link and all this kind of stuff probably. Maybe it won't, but I don't want to risk it because it's an absolute pain to do that. So in the box, I should add that I don't think, so there's nothing that makes me think this is like a special kit. While it had been opened, I don't think they had opened it. I think this is just like bog standard, right? So there's nothing special in here that I'm getting above what you would get. So accessory kit that has, looks like a USB drive. You got your 10mm spanner for adjusting V-slot wheels, some screws, zip ties, Allen keys, the normal. Let's see if we can bring this in a little bit closer. We've got a tiny little user manual. So being the first printer with Klipper, they are going to have to break some new ground in terms of instruction manuals for that sort of thing. Hopefully that's going to work out okay. Bowden tube. I don't know if it's direct or Bowden at the moment. It's a PLA. This is like... you have a power cable and you have an Ethernet cable, because you got Klipper and you got a decent control board, you got network capability, which is one of the really nice features. We have an ADXL 345, so if you've not looked at doing accelerometer and input shaping, this is an accelerometer which basically measures the acceleration at any moment of the whatever it's attached to. And that input shaping is basically, it's basically kind of dynamic acceleration adjustment to reduce force but increase average speed. Does that make sense? So instead of normal printers where acceleration is kind of constant throughout the motion, input shaper will change the amount of acceleration. I believe this is how it works, in order to reduce like vibration and increase overall printing speed. It's not unique to Klipper, but they were maybe one of the first to implement it very well. In here we have a small display. It doesn't look like a touch screen, but you may probably find that with a Klipper web interfaced printer that the screen becomes less important. We've got a little rubber duck because that's the thing that Big Tree Tech do. I did actually look up why they do it. It doesn't make sense, but they do it. We've got a spool holder. Okay. So, oh no, here's the little ring that holds it together. I don't know which, it's been a while since I've done this, which angle's going to be useful for looking at the things. Has anyone done a guide with input shaping with RepRap firmware? I was going to when they first implemented it, but it just wasn't working super great, so I ended up not. We have basically what is a top frame. If you've seen 3D printers before, you're probably familiar with what this bit is. And then we have a gantry with that kind of cool looking Hotend on there. So that is just Hotend in there, isn't it? So we're getting a Bowden, yeah, extruders over here. That chuck over there. Huh. And then in the basement here we have essentially the electronics and bed assembly. Nicely packaged, but unfortunately this kind of packaging I don't think is recyclable, so good that your product is protected, but the environment is not protected. So that's that piece. I think what we typically do is look through the electronics first. So I'm going to stick with that method. It's tried and true. I'll try and explain some things that I spot as we go. So the first thing I noticed while it was in the box, you might have heard me go, ooh, I want this camera higher. Oops, daisy. Try not to break things in the process. There we go, how about that, eh? Are we happy? Stop squeaking the dog as the cat's going nuts. So sorry, Paul. What if I just, like, one more time? Okay, so you have a spring steel sheet. Yep, I think that's spring steel. I think I'd have bent it by now if it wasn't. It's a rough textured surface. It looks like the standard PEI that you expect. Difficult for me to confirm exactly the material, but it looks like what I expect it to be. Okay, that's fine, I think. The thing I noticed is this here. So this printer has a kind of dual zone heating element. So I don't know if I'll be able to see it. No, it's got an insulation under the bed. But presumably this switch here allows you to switch between the central zone and the outer zone. So I think the central zone is like 100 watts and the outer is like 200 and something watts. It's kind of a nice idea because it means if you're only doing a little print in the middle of the bed, you only have to heat a smaller amount of bed. But the bed is aluminium. If you're heating this, this will heat as well. You just have less power to do the same heating. So I don't know if it's going to be actually that much better. The peak power will be lower, but you're never going to reach that higher temperature. Yeah, it does seem to be a little bit wobbly. It is a wooden, oh, there's a cable over this. It perhaps is a little wobbly, very tiny bit. I think part of it is the desk, part of it is unfortunately the assembly as well. So we've got a tensioning mechanism here. This is to tension the belt. Even on nothing there is some tension, so it's quite tight already. That's not ideal. I've just... so, this is the bed, this is the cable, this is the bed moving towards the front of the printer. This is the bed not quite reaching the front of the printer. I'm sure in the models and testing before having packaged something up, it stuck out the back like this. Hopefully mine returns to that kind of position because you don't want the bed power cable snatching on here because this will just pull it out. There's a bit of a risk that. We'll see how it plays out. Let's have a flip over. Right, let's give this an opening. Is this the right? Yes. Excuse me, world's longest screws. Quite a few screws. In case it matters, it's a 2.5mm Allen key to remove the screws, just so you know. What do you mean by exposed ribbon cable? This here, this is for the screen. It's just taped up, so the screen will be fitting out the side here. So I think that's fine. I think these two screws are not gonna. Huh? Do I have to? I think I need to remove these two up here. Right, quite a lot of screws just to take the base off. Hopefully that comes out. Yeah, so it's kind of slips in the front, I think. Don't know again. Oh, careful. As always, they've used glue for all the screws. My least favourite thing for people to do. This is cool though. Check that out. Why have they put that on the inside? They should put that on the underside. That looks awesome. You can only just see it. It's a full-on diagram. It kind of makes me feel sad thinking that lots of people that never open this enclosure will never even get to see it. At least that hot glue was not too difficult to remove. I think that's enough to get it off. Yeah, so check that out. That's pretty cool. So it's the Manta M4P, and you can see this is where the compute module goes. So you've got basically all the pin letters. Pin layout, pin diagram is what you would call it. So it lets you know where your voltages are, your grounds, as well as all the numbers. For when you're configuring things in Klipper, you need to know those pin names. So useful to have. Not sure why it's on the inside. As I said, quite like that to be on the outside. I've just found this as well. So that goes that way up. So here we have a fan. Can you see? Yeah, you can see here. So you can tell which way a fan spins because the hub is always on the back, and it goes out to the back. So this is blowing this way, so it's pulling air from this direction. It's difficult to know if that's the most effective way or not. I think people will typically expect it to go the other way. They'd want the air blowing towards the drivers, but having airflow being pulled across could be okay. It's a shame this vent is not really above the drivers. You can probably see in that direction here. So you can see the drivers under here starting about here, and they go to about here. So it's unfortunate that the vent is not like here instead. One of the things you can do with Klipper, well, I found it easier with Klipper. I don't think I've experienced much with other things. Because you have input shaper and you can reduce the overall force needed, you end up with higher accelerations on average. You can push your stepper drivers pretty hard, so they do end up pretty hot. So you do need that forced convection to get the most out of them. You want to keep them reasonably cold. And I just don't know if that's enough. A duct or something might be needed as a modification. Holy bananas, would you look at that? That looks like a pre-order special. Blimey, Charlie. Oh, I'll be asking about that. Can you see that? A custom machined CB1 heatsink. I thought to get a CB1 out because I didn't want to remove the one that's on the board. So this is what that looks like. I just want to show if I can find what the original heatsink looks like so you have something to compare it to. I don't know if I have one close to hand. Oh, yes, I do. Oh. Coming back. So this is the standard CB1 heatsink. This is, I'm pretty sure, or maybe it is, I'm not so good with aluminium processors. I was thinking die cast, but it actually might be CNC'd because of the squareness of these channels on in here. It looks like that would be a machine process, probably. But they've obviously changed it for this. This is just like a, can I untape these? Yeah, that gives you a slightly better view. So it's kind of smooth down here. And then you've got this finned heatsink on this side. So it looks like, yeah, so this is what the module looks like. So this part here is your wireless connectivity, so your antenna connects here. So the heatsink doesn't cover that. You'd normally go on like so. You see you've got space to connect the antenna. And then you've got, I believe this is memory, and then the actual CPU package. So this is the bit where the big heatsink is. In fact, I think it's covering most of this area. And then there's raised here, and then you've got an open area there. It's quite difficult to see down in the back there, but that's what that is. Is CB1 a Pi replacement? So, yes. Yes and no. So, if you're familiar with, so you're probably familiar with things like the 3B or the 4B, and that's the kind of very typical, if you like, looking Raspberry Pi, the small like credit card size with USB ports, the Ethernet on the side, and like the HDMI, some USB-C port, whatever. The whole thing, that is like your normal Raspberry Pi. And then you have the CM4, which is a Raspberry Pi product that looks exactly like this, which is just like the computer part of that module without the additional peripherals, power supply, and all this kind of stuff were built onto it. And that's for integrating into other devices rather than having all that extraneous stuff that you don't necessarily need on a more integrated product. And so those were, the CM4, the Pi product, was more available than the standard 4B, 3B products as the chip shortage started to occur. So people started buying them, they were being used in like adapter boards and that kind of thing. And obviously BIQU Tech is making lots of control boards, Raspberry Pi, klipper integration, they're concerned about the same things. So they've developed this, which is basically it's not identical to a CM4. It's quite different. It doesn't work in exactly the same way. The pinouts, I think, are a little bit different as well. But largely, it's basically an equivalent to or replaces that sort of product. But it's not the same, it's not identical, it's just very similar and does the same sorts of things in a 3D printer. But yeah, that's this little thing. What else we got in here? So, just full on USB cables. Where's that USB cable connecting to? Oh, so at the back you can probably see it better than I can here. You've got a USB hub, basically, 2 USB ports. I'm guessing those are the 2 that connect directly back here. Then you've got Ethernet. This is again connected using this Ethernet cable back here. So these are presumably, I'm pretty sure this is the Raspberry Pi size. So these USB ports and Ethernet connecting directly to this, to the Pi, the CAB1 module. Then you've got a stepper motor in the middle, and over this side you have SPI. So SPI is basically where you would connect your ADXL, your accelerometer, and that's the device you use for input shaping. The reason it's on the back here and not like integrated in is 2 reasons, basically. When you run input shaping, it's like a single procedure. It's a bit like, it's not like bed leveling, but it's a procedure that you run, but you don't need to run it every time you do a print, because it's kind of based on the mechanical properties and the vibration resonance of the machine. So when you've built it and you're ready to print, you would do your calibration. So you plug this in, you do your calibration, you understand your variables, you set the firmware to use those variables that you found, and then you unplug it and you don't need it again. So there's no need to have this permanently attached, which is why they have this extra little plug. You plug it in, do the setup, unplug it, you don't need it anymore. It's kind of weird, actually, now that I think about it, because it has mass, so it will change the resonance of the printer when you add it and then remove it. But anyway, that's how pretty much everyone does it on their Voron, Ratrig, everything else printers, apart from those that have like CAN modules with it built in and stuff like that. I'm doing a lot of explainy shit today. Hopefully that's not patronizing. I just know that a lot of people maybe have not been introduced to that clipper side of things and all the other stuff that you may be new, so I just want to go over the details more than once. Power supply doesn't seem to be a Meanwell, but they've called it LRS35024. It doesn't have Meanwell branding on it, which you would expect if it was a Meanwell power supply. I'm just seeing that screw looks a little bit dodgy, so let's see if that's actually tight. This is the ground, so hopefully it is. It's tight. I'm not sure it's a very good connection. They've put 2 terminals on a single thing, and it's... I think it will be okay. It's definitely not ideal. I prefer, so on other printers where you have lots of things that need power, I'll typically use a Wago terminal. So something like, I'll show you, saves me trying to double explain stuff. Just in case you don't know what they are. So something like this. So this electrical connector, anything you put in these holes is all connected to one thing. So you lift the lever, stick in your cable, obviously you cut the end off first so it's just bare wire, lock it in, and that's in there. You put all the other ones in the holes. And it's just a good way to end up connecting lots of things to one terminal on the power supply. And I've lost where I put the screw. There it is. So this one here is actually earth, which is even more confusing. So, okay. So basically one earth goes to the frame, which by the looks of it, this is all screwed to anyway. Maybe even slightly superfluous. So. But still okay in my eyes. Apart from these 2 terminals, generally not great. You can probably see there the screw doesn't look quite straight compared to the other ones. Yeah, I think it'll be okay. It's quite a lot of wiring. So this is your your bed wire going here, bed terminals. Let's have a look at those. One thing we often see is use of solder on the joints. It looks like we've got it here. Yes. Come on, Big Tree Tech. You guys definitely know better. You know so much better that you even didn't do it on this cable. This one has the proper terminal, and it's literally right next to this one. This is what we do want. Crimp terminal, flat spade, do it, put it in here, crimps down, lovely, good connection. This is what we don't want. Solder. Solder bad. It's good for soldering. If you're connecting stuff onto a PCB, for example, yes, solder isn't inherently bad, but this is not the right application for it. So I would want to change that. Have I put that back together correctly, or have I put them around the wrong way? Ah, we can actually check, can't we? Hopefully this is going to help. Boobity boobity boom. Ground, voltage, ground 24, 24 signal, 24 signal. Amazing. Useful to have. Other things we have in here, we've got something labelled as BL Touch, which is going to be their probe. I'm not sure why they've labelled it BL Touch, because it's not a BL Touch, but obviously works in basically the same way. They've crammed it in on top of these so you've got a little ribbon cable there for BL Touch. This is your thermistors. You've got fan connectors as well going to here. I guess this ribbon cable is not just BL Touch. It's like most of the Hotend-y sort of things and bits. So what else does this connect to? It's connecting to some RGB stuff by the looks of it. It's connected to here, which is thermistor, probably Hotend thermistor. So it's basically a Hotend cable, I guess. Doop doop doo. All the motors over down this side, all been glued in, annoyingly. Come on, why is it glued in? I just don't like them being glued in. Interestingly though, they've done most of the connectors as what do you call them? SMD, so they're surface mount. Normally you would have through holes, so the pin just connects all the way through a hole and you solder the hole. These are all surface mount. I checked my Manta M8P, but I don't think that was the same. Yeah, the M8P that I have has all through hole connectors. Not sure why this one's different. Kind of interesting. Any more questions? Am I doing a good amount of explanation? Is it good, or am I just being slow and boring? Let me know. If I'm being slow and boring, I'll just hurry up. The cable management is clearly not working super great. Like they're holding them together, but they don't actually hold down to anything. The rigidity of the cables is obviously quite significant here. And I guess they've not super considered that when they've put it together, because it doesn't actually hold anything down, unfortunately. We do need to make sure we get the power supply voltage right, depending on which nation you are in. The window's kind of, can't even blooming see a thing. Not sure how you're supposed to check that. Right, I think I've been slow and boring enough, haven't I? You've all fallen asleep. Let's stick the bottom back on. hiding away this lovely bit of artwork. Now, where was the fan? I think it must have been this one. Ribbon cable in front of the window. What do you mean? This is the way it was, wasn't it? Oh. Didn't it just come out here? I think that's right. Right, let's get all these blooming screws back in. Oh no, I could, yeah, so it looks like it's covering it. I could see the red bit, but there was just not enough light because it's so far back from the panel. I could see the red bit, just not which side it was. I'm assuming that they've set it correctly. Came with a British UK power plug. Everyone's so quiet today. Is it because I've not done a stream in a while? We do need to decide what we're eventually going to print when we do some printing. We've had a couple of suggestions for the recent E3D models. Assumptions are bad, I know. I've not had to adjust any printer today. That's also not good evidence, is it? Right. Let's see if I can get a light in. I have a torch somewhere, maybe I'll just use my phone if I can't see it. Light. It's on 2:30. We're all good. Everyone's going to be safe. Oh, by the way. Oh, There might have been a cable supposed to stick through there. No, probably not. Can I promote my things? Does anyone mind? You don't get a choice. Here, look, I made a thing. These have been selling pretty well. I've sold a good amount of the kits that I have now. So I'll probably be getting more, but it may take a little while. So if you're after one, you might want to get them sooner rather than later. So this is VLMP, the vertical linear motion press. You put your soldering iron in here. We have grips of all different sizes, customized if you buy the printed parts. And you use it for adding inserts to 3D printed parts. Pretty neat little kit. Bibbidi bobbidi boom. Highly recommended because I designed it. We've had lots of good reports so far, so if you fancy one, you might be able to be amongst those people. Sponsored by Vector 3D. I don't have to say sponsored if it's me. Like, obviously I'm going to promote my own products. It doesn't count as being sponsored. At least that's the legal definition, I believe, for UK. Because I didn't pay you myself. The only reason you have to disclose it is to make it clear that you're promoting somebody else's product rather than just having it. I think we'll leave that actually for a little bit because I don't want to give me greasy fingers all over it. Okay. So, I probably should have mentioned that BQ provided this, shouldn't I? I didn't buy this myself. Speaking of sponsored by. Yes, they did provide this printer to me for purposes of making said video. So, firstly, attach the stepper motor to the frame, attach the gantry to the frame, put more screws in, put the frame on the base, add the spool holder, add the screen, do some things, done. There's no smoke coming from it yet, but it's also not plugged in or turned on, so this just, it's not going to turn on when there's no power cable connected. So where's that motor? Oh. Oh, the first step is not add it, the first step is remove it. So that's the tube. Let's try and make some space here. So obviously it's kind of, well, presumably it's on here for easier shipping, saving space and all that. So take that off, and then this goes on. We've got to get it the right way round, probably. Doesn't really say. Looks like the holes are both sides, but this is different. So you want these bits, so this is the back because you can see there's slots on this side. You can see it's smooth, this is the front. So whatever you do, just make sure you get that the right way around. So it's probably easier to do this way up. Oof! That was loud. Okay. They've got some like Bontex style gears on the extruder with some mega tension. Holy man! Darn it. Now we need to put our thing back in. Unfortunately, we're going to have to wind this all the way up the screw, I think. Oh dear. Just a screw. Make sure that doesn't go. So turn this until the motor aligns with that. So that's pretty good. Looks like the lead screw was pretty straight as well. Doesn't look too wobbly. Doesn't look wobbly at all actually, that's good. That's one thing that printers have really improved on actually. Before, like every printer you bought just came with wobbly lead screws. It doesn't seem to be very much of a problem these days. I'm going to reduce the tension on the V-slot wheels. You don't want them too tight. Tightness should be, so the way I do them is just maybe not absolutely perfect, but you should like just be able to turn the wheel by hand. I think that's the wrong way. It's never clear which way is tighter and which way is looser. Sometimes both ways are tighter if it's already at the looser setting. I think it was already at the looser setting, which is not ideal, because it means it's a bit tight. Okay, well, we're just going to accept that how it is. Shouldn't really be a problem as long as this can continue to move it up and down smoothly, which it seems to be able to do. 2 fans on the carriage, which is nice. What was the next step? Attach it to the base. M5x40 screws to attach it to the base. The base. So make sure we remove this tape from covering the screw hole, otherwise it's not going to work very well. There are some very light guides. This looks a little bit wider than that. Again, this is going to be quite difficult to do. A lot of these printers, it's not difficult, but it's kind of annoying to do because you have to screw them up from below, which is not ideal. 4mm Allen key. So you have to kind of tilt the printer on its side. Once you've got 1 or 2 in, it's not too bad, but the first 1 or 2, not always that easy. I think this is pushing this away. There we go. Just use my chin to compress it together a little bit. I think the tension that was on the V-slot wheels was enough to force the base of the frame out just a little bit, which meant the screw didn't go in very easily. So, two top, well, two left, two right, don't forget one. If you don't have a ball head Allen screw, you might have to lift the printer up and away from the table. So having something you can rest it on might help, or just rotate it like so. There we go. Look at that. It's a printer. Next we have a spool holder, which is assembled in the traditional way. By traditional, I mean basically the same as every other low-cost 3D printer. In 4x8s, that's a little bit different. In 4x8 it is. Well, they include washers as well. What an honour! Oh dear. You can set it upright and move to the edge of the table if that's what you want to do. Depends how much space you've got and everything. What size are these? 2.5 actually, probably. I think it's actually expecting the spool to go out the other way. So let's flip this over. I don't think that's going to be wide enough for the old cardboard spools. Have I got a cardboard spool? It is. Nice. What we do next, that's the spool holder, the screen, 2 M5x8 button head screws, super sticky rubbery feet, nice peely. So I think we'll get these plugged in at the same time. So these are labelled EXP1 and EXP2. It's pretty important that you get them in the right place. If you get them in the wrong place, it will probably just not work. So it's labelled on the cable which one's which. Obviously EXP2 goes to EXP2. There's a bit of a weird place for the screen sticking out the side. You may find, as I said, or suggested earlier, that you don't really need a screen, but sometimes you do. Sometimes it's useful to have, even if it's just for preheat or emergency stop or something. Well, not emergency stop, but you know what I mean. Just some functions are just quicker and easier to do if you're like right next to the printer to use a screen. So that's the screen. Then I think it's saying just plug things in. Just plug things in. So we're going to go and plug some stuff in. So this is the main cable. I'm going to remove these zip ties that are on here. So we have two bundles. The first one is just ribbon cable. This is what goes directly to your Hotend rather. And then the second one has a bunch of things on. They're labelled as X motor, E motor, and X. So the little ones will be the end stops and the bigger ones will be the motors. So for this ribbon cable, we'll do that once we're facing the other way. Oh, we've got this cable down here as well. This is the motor cable. So just curl it around, stick it in the plug, happy days. Up here, so this is going to be basically an extruder end stop. We call it a filament detector or filament sensor. And that just plugs in there. This is going to be your extruder motor because this is where your filament path is. So this one is the one labelled E. And then obviously your motor's on this end. Use your X motion as always. So we stick the X motor in here. And then the end stop is normally around the front. Somewhere here. Yes, there's like a little hole up in here. I can't quite see which way around it goes. Got a bit of packaging fluff. Okay, so the way you want it is with the kind of the sticky outy bits, the two little keys, if you like, pointing towards here. It goes in nicely. So that's the one labelled X. And as we continue around, we've got the big cable, the big long boy for here. So we press it in and at the same time bring the edges up. Cool. We've got to be a bit careful. The pins can be quite easy to destroy. There we go. So you'll find that as you push it in, the clips start to come up. That just means that as you pull it, it won't just come out. And then they want us to zip tie that down in an attempt to protect it. I'm not convinced it'll do that much. Zip tie is not great for holding flat things to other flat things. Well, better than I expected. So cable tie on that. And we've got another cable tie over here. So up on this bit here, this metal part, I think I saw it. Yeah, you can see it just here, this little slot. So put our zip tie through that. Manage the cables through this. Come on. Come on. There we go, something like that. This doesn't look remotely long enough. How do I get, I've got like lubricant all over my hands, how do I manage that? This cable is at like maximum length and it's right at the like midpoint. I don't know if I want this on here because it's, you need that length. I think we'll just have to leave it kind of loose. We can probably manage this one over here. This might make a bit more sense. But again, it's not that long. So for this one, I'm just moving the carriage to its widest motion here. So the distance between there and there is going to be maximum of that. So I'll maybe tighten it somewhere close to that. There's no reason to go super tight for this. Just something around that should be sufficient. And maybe I'll hold these together. Like so. Snippy and snippy. In this accessory kit we also have a nozzle and tube coupler. I guess this is a replacement for the Hotend one, because we've got a different one. Is this the next step? Yeah, so in the Bowden tube package you get your tube and one fitting. So you know which is the right one. It comes with two. One is much larger diameter thread than the other, so you won't be able to put them in the wrong place. The fat one is for the extruder. The thin one is for the hot end side. So we want to wind this in here. Hopefully that spanner will also fit this. Yes. You do want it reasonably tight. Don't yank on it too much, but you don't want it wobbling out, that's for sure. Because if this comes out when you're printing, it's basically game over for that print. It's, yeah, no filament will feed if that comes out. You'll just end up with a big mess of filament. And then you just press that fully seated into both sides. I didn't take a look at the hot end itself, did I? I kind of want to do that, so let's find out how easy that is to do. That is it for the assembly. I think we're kind of done. I mean, I'm looking at these screws on the side and thinking that's going to be a nice easy way for everything to disassemble. But I'm also feeling a little too, like that seems too good to be true. Oh, there we go. So that's the whole shroud, does just kind of come off. That is a basic ass looking hot end. The sock doesn't quite fit. I'm not sure if that's standard Creality mount. I'll probably grab a spare Creality hot end and see if it's like the same size. I think this is an old Creality hot end. So it's longer, it's taller than the Creality's dimensions. And I think the hole spacing is different as well. Oh, it's difficult to tell. Yeah, the hole spacing is different too. So you won't be able to put like a Creality Revo or something on. It is different. So connections wise, you've got all your different things just on this little circuit board behind here. And then your heater and thermistor go into the bottom of the block. They've gooped up this, oh my goodness, what is this nozzle assembly? Blimey, Charlie. This does not look quite right. The nozzle's sticking out like half a mile. Why is it sticking out that far? I'm a little bit concerned. Let's see if we can have a closer look. I'm hoping the heater will be labelled. The heater cartridge is totally unmarked, so no idea if it's 40 watt, 30 watt, 80 watt. It's just unlabelled. Looks like it's also not an all metal hot end. This hot end is not looking particularly impressive. The melt zone is not particularly long. I'm not particularly expecting very high flow rates. The nozzle assembly here looks like we'll get a lot of cooling around the nozzle, which could cause problems potentially. Because if the nozzle drops significantly different temperature to the thermistor, then that's not particularly great. Why is the thermistor sticking so far out? The thermistor's like here to here. What the? I'm sure it'll probably read okay, but it doesn't look deliberate. The heatsink is just literally like a slab of aluminium. I think this is one of their cost-cutting measures in order to implement all the other kind of cool stuff that they've got. Hot end's not looking great. But then it leaves you a nice little upgrade path, doesn't it? People like doing their upgrades, so that would probably be one thing I would suggest upgrading. To me, this Hotend looks like they designed the printer and the overall cost just came out a bit higher than they wanted it to be. So they took the Hotend, made it cheaper, and accepted it like that. It's nice that the shroud is reasonably easy to disassemble. And of course you've got their little probe thing on the front as well. Quite difficult to really inspect very closely. Don't they have an LED somewhere in here as well? An RGB LED? Oh yeah, it's on the bottom of this circuit board that's behind the Hotend. A circuit board which will get very, very warm. How do I, there we go, get over there and down and over and this is a bit finicky, isn't it? You can probably see better on that side that something's going wrong. It doesn't go on. Why does it not go on? How did I do this? How did I do this? This is bizarre. It doesn't go in. Can anyone see what I've done? Oh. Is that in? That's there. God, I don't even know how I did that. It's a bit of an over and under and tilt and hopefully get there eventually. Oh, hopefully this can go on now. Tweezers. Let's make sure this is as on as it can get. Okay. No, it's still not in. It was. I could have sworn it was. Can't for the life of me see why it would not go on there. Oh, okay, I think we're there. seem to come off quite easily, but it doesn't seem to go back on quite as easily as it comes off. So while that front does look pretty neat, it might not be staying that long. A design that's more focused on the functionality than the aesthetics may be beneficial in the long run. I wouldn't expect BQ to change that, but you may find 3D printed alternatives that might be beneficial. Ooh, okie dokie. Right, how are we doing? BQ-Hurakan 16GB OS SD card. Okay, so this is not a USB drive as such, it's a SD and micro SD card reader, card adapter thing. You have a micro SD slot in the end and a big full-size SD slot on the side. But for all my Clipper-based printers, I don't use SD cards at all. Quite frankly, not worth the hassle. Let's just check we've done all of these things that it wants us to do. One packing list, 2 installation, 3 tuning. So it does want us to adjust V-slot wheels. That one could probably be a bit tighter. That one I like. These ones I couldn't get to be something appropriate. That's just about there, maybe. There's never any real indication which way is going to be tighter or looser. Because it's cyclic, so it's difficult to tell which ones. There we go, okay. Okay, I like that. Let's get this tube back in. Then it says do the bed as well. Yep, the bed's pretty loosey-goosey. Oh, they've gone for 2 V-slot wheels. I prefer 1 adjustable wheel per carriage. Difficult to tell because of the bed springs and the fact that the bed is quite large. The front one I'm fine with, the back one definitely needs more. Oh, the back ones seem to be making looser. Great. I don't know why they don't make these spanners a little bit longer. It doesn't really even stick out the side of the bed to be able to do this. Okay, nearly there. Okay, I'm happy enough with that. Oh dear. Dear, oh dear, oh dear, oh dear. Okay, so now we can move on to plugging it in. Do some leveling. Let's get the power on. Annoyingly, let's round the back side. Right. Before we turn it on, going to have a quick break. It's not going to be an ad break or anything. Maybe I'll do one of them YouTube ad things. No, I won't. Just a quick 2, 3, 4, 5 minute break. Couple of minutes, won't be long. And then we'll come back and we'll get it turned on and we'll do some more introduction testing stuff and things. So we'll be just back in a minute. Okie dokie. time to carry on. So let's power it on. Oh, do I need to? It's really annoying, this power cable, because the power thing's on this side. Is it going to be easy to come around? Oh, I've got my extra long power cable, I'll just use this. It's not the one that came with it. Oh, what? Oh, it's chaos. Right. Okay. That was a quick 5 minutes. It's the quickest 5 minutes I could do. I think we'll probably bring the camera down a bit now. Right, are we ready to turn it on? I don't want people to go away and then miss it, that's the thing. Hopefully everyone that was here has come back. And we can go ahead and power it on. That is the noisiest probe I've ever heard in my life. Why is it so loud? They need like maybe a little rubber bump stop on the top. Stop it, bang, right into the top. BQ-Hurakan starting. OS card must be ready before power on. OS will start up 45 seconds after power on. 45 seconds? I have to sit here for 45 seconds waiting for it to turn on. In the meantime, we just sort of twiddle our thumbs for a bit, I guess. It's starting to yawn. This is the downside with doing streams late in the evening, I guess. I can't believe you have to wait all this time. Can you not skip it? You just have to be a good boy and wait. There we go, we've been well behaved enough that it's decided to turn on. So if you've seen like Marlin style, this is going to be your IP address by the look of it. Got some calibration stuff in there. Don't know why Z is already set to something. Let's have a look at the instructions and see what it wants us to do. It says go to control, home all. We'll get the bed on now. It looks like they've copied the Prusa bed size. It looks identical. Oh. No, it's not. It's smaller. quite a good thickness bed surface, I think. Feels like it's got something on it. Maybe it's just clean. Maybe a little bit on the thin side. Not too bad. Okay, so now we'll do a home. Oh. Reasonably quiet motion. I am worried about this cable though. Probe should come down right in the middle. That's nice. Cool. Then it wants us to do manual level. Clear mesh. It's not obvious when the button's been pressed. And then left front. And we're going to do paper method leveling by the looks of it. And then right front. Right back. Left back. I've got a center one as well. That's pretty good. Must be a reasonably flat bed. So that's tuning, carry on tuning. I think this is just explaining how to do a thing. I know. Check voltage, screen, platform leveling. After clear mesh, we can start manual leveling. Place a piece of A4 paper, nozzle and bed, adjust the height of each corner. When the thumb screw is turned clockwise, the bed will rise, and the clockwise, the bed will descend. Number 5 is insert filament. Cut the filament tip pointy, hold down the extruder handle, and push the filament into the extruder, into the filament tube at the same time. Check whether the screws on the machine are installed correctly and make sure they are tight. I don't know why we need to insert filament now. Wi-Fi settings. Set the Wi-Fi SSID and password. So if you're going to do that, you're going to have to remove this card, I would guess. It doesn't actually. Remove the micro SD card and modify the system in your computer with the Windows default NoPro program. Make sure the machine is powered down, remove the SD card, modify the config. I'm just going to use a wired connection. Wired connections, much easier, much faster for file uploads, much more reliable, don't require any configuration, don't take up valuable Wi-Fi bandwidth, all of the above. So you just whack that into the back. Bibbidi bobbidi boom, we've got a network printer. So we'll go back up to the top. Where we saw before, we'll hopefully, there we go. So down in the screen, that's then the IP address. Really nice that it displays it, and then, oh, my computer's dying. No, I think we're going to make it through. So I think, let's just, so we put that IP address. Whoop. Whoop. Can't type on this. 129. Bibbidi bobbidi boom, Hurakan klipper firmware. How good's that? All set up, ready to go. This looks like a pretty... So they've done, this is the print time that they've done already. Test circle, test level. Sliced in Simplify 3D version 4. This one's in progress apparently. So, oh, they've got like backup files, that's weird. These are made when you do a save config. These files are created automatically as a backup for your printer.cfg, which is basically the firmware configuration. Got the bots coming again. We've been bot free for quite a while. They've obviously found a way around. So yeah, this is your main printer config. We have, if you're unfamiliar with Clipper, this will probably look very intimidating, but don't worry too much. Basically, this is basically called a section. So this is what the section is called. This is like, you select from the list of all the commands and that's the command, and then this is the name. So this particular section is a G-code macro, which is basically like a pre-programmed procedure, and it's called start print. And then under that you have a G-code section, and all of this is the G-code for that. This is basically like variables. All of this is creating variables. All of this is creating variables, doing some maths, and then it's just like preheat, G28, calibrate, go to a position, all that kind of stuff. So it's not doing a lot, it just looks quite intimidating. This is what I would more expect to be in the printer.cfg, so they've kind of, I guess, rearranged it for their specific usage. So again, you see this is the section called a G-code macro, and this one's called probe deploy, and it literally just sets the pin enabled, value 1. So it's just enabling the pin for the macro to deploy the probe. This is for bed mesh, this is for Z Safe Home, this is for the ADXL, this is for testing resonances using the ADXL. Your steppers, X, Y, and Z, extruder, filament sensor switch or your E-stop, heated bed fan, and then these are like pin numbers. So if you can use, instead of using the names, you can like give it an alias. So you can use this instead of that. That's all this is doing. Stepper driver configuration, options for using 5160, maybe they'll have that as an upgrade. Pretty neat. So you can see on the right hand side here, or you actually can't see very well. This is the update manager, which I believe is driven by Moonraker. So like update manager for these, update manager for mainsail, update manager for crow's nest. I believe like Clipper, I'll probably get this wrong, I'll make myself sound like an idiot. I think Clipper is like the code that runs the operations. Moonraker is the thing that allows other things to interface with Clipper while it's doing its thing. Mainsail, I know, is the web interface, could be Fluid or Mainsail. This looks like Mainsail to me. Yeah, that's the Mainsail logo in the top left. And yeah, that's the three things. So if we look here, oh, not that. GitHub mainsail. So you can see they're invalid. It may be because they've got special versions, because it's running on a slightly different controller. So I'm not going to force an update because I don't want to break it before we do a first print. Typically, if we go and look at another printer, so like my Voron V0, you can customize this whole web interface so this one looks different. I don't have updates shown on this page. Where do I put it? Here. So for me, these are due updates, but they're not out of date by far. Looks like LED effect is. That's nice. Moonraker, you can see it's still version 0.7.1, 0.7.1, but this is 660 and that's 747. So this is how you would normally update it, and then you click one of these or update all components and it'll do all the updates. Very simple. Whereas with Hurakan, they're invalid, so there's probably some recovery. I'm not going to worry about that now. I might make a little guide on how to get around it and all that kind of stuff. What you can do, check for updates. But I think it's not going to find this or not going to accept this. It still thinks this is invalid, I predict. Does use quite a lot of CPU checking for updates, just be aware of that. I've not tried doing it mid-print, I don't know if you can, but probably avoid doing that. That looks like it's going to take forever. So yeah, can do all the things from here. This just allows you to control the entire printer in every way that you expect a web interface to be able to. So you can move it around, move the axes, plus minus, whatever you want to do. Lefty righty. You can change your extrusion parameters like mid-print. Oh, I tried to make it bigger, but I made it too big. Fan control. I don't know why. Well, that's annoying. That's a cooling fan. These are not controlled because they're controlled by G code. It just depends how you set up the fans. You can have some that are sliders, some are locked, some are. It just depends. Depends. If you want to modify the interface, you can go in here and go to dashboard. and then you can have different interface setup depending on what device you access it on. So desktop or widescreen desktop, tablet or mobile. So you'll get a slightly different interface if you like go to one side, for example. That would be like a desktop, and you'll see as you go wider it'll add in more columns. So now there's like 1, 2, 3 kind of thing. There's lots of ways you can modify it if you want to, but you can just drag these into different columns. If you want to add different presets for ABS, PLA, etc., so we might want maybe 215 and 60. We'll call this PLA. We could add some custom G-code as well as we wanted, but that would just create us a preset button. So now we've got this here. Click this, preheats for PLA. Cool down will be there automatically. You can change other stuff about the interface, like logo color and stuff, but generally it's not going to be too much bother. You can see that's just changed up here. Let's decide this. You can have thumbnails, so this will just show thumbnails when you gets given from your slicer. Loads of stuff. You can hide some of the macros, so if you don't want to accidentally click macros or you don't want them to be triggered physically, you can turn them on and off here so they're visible and not visible. Lots and lots and lots and lots of things. So let's load in some filament. What filament do I want to use? Oh, I'll use one of these that's up here, I think. We've got this nice filament from Area 1, which is pretty funky. It's like a pink gold, a red gold combo. Is my sound level really low? Maybe I put the mic in a weird place. It does look like it's quieter than it used to be. It might be just me talking quietly. Sometimes I just end up starting to talk quite quietly. Am I being quiet? Maybe I'm just being quiet. Nobody else has mentioned it, but maybe they were being nice. Not that you're not being nice. That's not great. Can't get the blooming thing through the filament sensor. Oh, come on, this filament path is not great, I would say. On a scale of 1 to not great, this is not great. It's just getting stuck on stuff. Everything 10 to max. Have I just been like super quiet the whole time? Is anyone else having audio problems? Am I super quiet? So now that I've got the filament in, I'm going to do probably PLA preset. Let's just check where this, it's got a QR code. It's going to their GitHub. Was it you that had something weird, or was it me? So we've got another manual here. Is this a other more different manual? It is different. Same contents so far, but it is arranged differently. Tune the nozzle height. Enter the secondary interface during printing to tune. Install Cura. Via Wi-Fi. Whoa, there's so much stuff on here. I kind of want to run a print to see, because a lot of this stuff it can do itself. Like, I want to know what these are. That's a bed zigzag print. Excuse me. This is a benchy. They've just called it boat, but it's a benchy. So this is all built into Clipper, basically. Well, mainsail, I should say. So that's what test 3 is, and we've got test 2, which is a circle. Oh, blimey. Oh, blimey. Hello. That's a big old... What is it? I reckon that's like a Z height tester, basically. Do it finish the update checks? Yes, all but Clipper. Yeah, because this is a kind of custom version of Clipper. Moonraker is just like, what's going on? I'm going to leave it not updated. I'm not going to update it for now. So, I feel like we probably want a separate stream to do some more advanced tuning. For now, I just want to run a print. That was a 2 hour, 50-minute benchy, which is a bit long. Let's try, where's that E3D? Wasn't it? Golf buggy, I meant. The buggy stress test. I can't remember where it was. Was it on printables? Print tables. Let's go print tables. Oops, I actually meant to put printables. Oh, did that say E3D? There we go. Oh, we could do the spider, which is going to be quicker. Probably this. Let's download SCR. Oh, we've got this one. So big thanks, obviously, thank you to E3D. Make sure you go check them out. It's a cute little kind of torture stress test that they've designed. So now we need a slicing profile. So they suggested Kira, but I think that's going to be a little bit slow. But we don't have much choice. Ah, no, yes. So start G-code is a little bit different when you're using Klipper. If you've not used Klipper before, you're probably used to putting your G-codes for your start G-code in the slicer, because that's kind of what start G-code has always been, right? And it's sort of the same, but instead of putting those G-codes in the slicer, we just call up the macro that does all of those things. And that way we keep that control on the printer rather than in the slicer. So the suggestion was in those instructions printing, here we go. Yeah, they call it BQ-B1, which I don't think it is it? Isn't it? Network printer. Technically, it is a network printer. But I don't think this is gonna. Yeah, it's not an Ultimaker. We're looking for a BQ-B1. Yeah, see this. Oh, why does Kira have this stupid tiny little window for start and end G code? Come on. Really? It's so dumb. How are you supposed to do that? You can't even expand it? Wow. Such interface. Right, not going to deal with that. We'll go try create a new super slicer profile. This is not my speciality, I warn you. So prepare to be triggered. Right. So what should we base it off? This is probably a reasonably good one. Let's not do, we don't want to, we'll do it off here. No, not 0.6 mils version. Why is it only 0.6 mils here? Okay, so save, we'll call it BQ-Hurakan. And then we need our sizes, which I think it had in the manual. 220, 220, 270. 270 height. Bed is 220 by 220. This might not be quite right, but I'm not going to worry about that for now. G-code is clipper flavor. And I think all of that is going to be okay. Custom G-code. So we don't have this. This is what we need to call start print, extruder, or bed temp. So this is where you have to be a little bit careful with the variables. So in our Hurakan, in our start G code here, start print, 235, nozzle, start. So what it's looking for is here. Bed temp, extruder temp. And those are what we have to put in the thing. Extruder temp, bed temp. Good. That's good, 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 good. And then we've got end print macro here. Don't need to worry about much else. These are your maximums. Extruder, we don't have that. We have this. Layer height limits, that's probably alright. Retraction, probably going to have something different, but I don't know what it is. I mean, given it's Bowden, I'm going to assume a lot more. I don't know, maybe 4mm. I've not used Bowden printers in a while. No lift. Okay, that's not too bad. So once we've done that, we can then create a physical printer from it. What should we call it? Call it the Blue Boy. And then we put on clipper here. We put in the IP address. We test it. Works correctly. Filament, it looks like our filament profile will already work. Slicing profile, I'll probably use again the V-Minion ones. It'll probably be good enough. E3D buggy, looks huge there. Open. Is it actually big or is it quite small? It's quite big. Max, what the hell? What's down to 0.4? What's it talking about? Max layer height. It's not, is it? Oh, it's just the max. Okay, here we come. Come on. Okay, like 3. That's fine. One hour. We've got some filament loaded. Have we done a preheat? I think I preheated. Maybe I didn't preheat. So this is, you can see, no you can't. Is it at the back here? So it looks like if you put it to the on position, 2 lights, that's presumably going to heat the whole bed. If you do off position, just the red light, it's probably just the middle of the bed. I think we'll try just the middle of the bed, seeing as we're doing a smallish print. Maybe 75% is a pretty good idea. Cuts it down a little bit, doesn't it? I think it's going to struggle in here because our retraction settings are probably not going to be very good, because I've just guessed. Okie dokie. That's a good idea, actually. I did think about doing that earlier. I might just use this temporary zip tie the power cable for the bed to the rest of the bundle, because it'll keep it in this part of the bed instead of flopping over that way. You don't want it catching. So we can take this, oh, you can't see it, over here, click this button, that's going to send it straight to the printer, which is going to pop up here with a little image, and fingers crossed it'll go through any of those start procedures. It'll do all the things it needs to do and begin the print straight away. Unfortunately, we slightly overheated the preheating. It's going to go back to 140. Something tells me they might have borrowed a bit from the RatRig configuration files for this. I don't know why the probe is so loud. It's kind of a braking sort of volume. I mean, I'm sure it's not, but I just wanted to try and clean the nozzle, but I've lost my little. I had them around here earlier because I used them, but I don't know where they are now. Did I put them back in here? So the reason it's going to cool down the nozzle is when it does its startup kind of procedure. It wants to do that without nozzle issues, without plastic dripping all over the bed. And we can adjust Z offset. It's pretty easy to do. Once the print starts, you can see you get these Z offset controls. You just tap them and it changes. Like, it's pretty easy. There's not much time to do that, but hopefully it's alright. So what are we on? Well, this part of the bed feels just as hot as this part of the bed. I know, maybe not quite as hot, but it feels pretty hot. Have we cooled down yet? We're basically there. Error. That probe was 100% not triggered prior to movement, so I don't know what it's fussing about. It's a signal problem rather than an actual... problem. So it might have been the connector not seated quite right, but that's worrying because the clips were closed, so that should have been a pretty good connection. I think just maybe as this cable got moved and pulled, maybe just disconnected slightly. I've done the screw adjustment already at the start, a little while ago now. Probe pin was moving fine. Yeah, this is looking much better now. So you get a little preview. Sorry, I've not shown you any of actually what's going on. Once that's done, it's going to go do the rest of the preheat, and we'll get our height map as well. So this is just a visualized representation of the flatness of the bed. So you can put on all sorts of different, so that's a representation of what flat would be. So it's a little bit warpy, not flat, but then we also know that we're heating just the middle and not the outside, so that in itself will cause problems. You can make the scale steeper to make it look more obvious. Overall variance 0.16 is I mean, it's not amazing, but it's not too bad, considering half the bed is not actually heated. The probe is a touch style. It's like a BL touch. They even label the blooming cable as BL touch. Yeah, 0.166 is not. I mean, it's not. If it was a like machined bed, it wouldn't be great. But for said printer, pretty good. Yeah, it is dinky. It's tiny. I mean, this is the thing about BL Touch. It's been basically identical for years. I don't know. They've not really developed it. They must have sold absolutely boatloads of them. Obviously, it's been cloned as well, which will affect things for them. But it would have been nice to see them develop stuff a little bit more. So that's a purge. Oh, it's dragged the purge all the way to the middle of the bed. Doesn't look too bad. Oh, it needs to come down. Where's it? I've forgotten where it is. Blip. Maybe another blip. Maybe a blip. It's not going to be a very good first layer. Not sure even the extrusion quantity looks too good. The noise level is pretty good though, even with the fan in the base. I mean, there's no part cooling. The Hotend cooling is on, but the part cooling is not yet. There, that's that come on now. These arms at the side here are just wobbling. Not a huge fan of this ribbon connector. Now I guess we just kind of wait. I'm going to move this away from me a little bit if I can, just to try and avoid breathing in too much stuff. Don't forget to grab some LEDs. Yes, LEDs. Actually, you can't. I've only got one of these left. This is a broken one, which is why it's got next on the back. But they like Neos. The Neo Minis being super popular, so there's only one left at the moment. Need to get some more in. The Neos, full length RGBs. These are in stock. Also being very popular, but I did get more of those in advance. Daybreaks are all available as well, the white version. And VLMP, there's not many linear motion presses left, so there might be a bit of a wait until the next batch. So if you do want one, sooner rather than later, probably a good idea. For this printer, I think I'll end up doing another live stream. We'll do like a calibration live stream maybe, because there's a lot you can do with Klipper. And for those that are looking to get this and maybe more familiar with Marlin, it might be interesting, an interesting look. This is where I kind of want to sit back and eat a pizza. BealTouch have done a little bit of development. They've had a couple of slight version changes. There's like been a V1, a V2, 2.1 and a 3 or something like that. But considering how long they've just been on 3D printers, you'd think they'd try and find the next big thing. It's like this has not changed it. Unless they really believe it's perfect, there's always room for improvement. Right, it's time to chill. Who's got questions? The lighting is not superb, is it? The way that it's just kind of on that PCB at the back, it's blocked by cables and fans, and you can't really. It helps a little bit, I guess, but I don't think it's really in the right place to give the best illumination. I think it would have been best positioned literally like on the back of the probe. That's where I was looking for it when I took it off, because I thought you'd want it from the same direction you're looking. You can tell it's RGB as well, because it's RGB, W and white. We can probably have a look in the config file and what it's doing. Yeah, so it's a GRB NeoPixel LED, and they set it to red, green and blue 111. Why have they not put a... There should be a white in there. Yeah, so I'll show you the config. This is the bit. So they've got a NeoPixel in there. It's RGB GRB, but I could have sworn the way the light pattern looks like it's actually RGBW, but maybe it's not. If it's not RGBW, then you don't get a choice of just adding W, but I think the position to me is more annoying than it's what colours you can have. I also don't think they really needed these levelling wheels. I think this is a bit of an oversight. Not really like an oversight, but it's kind of superfluous. It would be best probably just fixed all around, bed mesh out the issues. When you've got a blooming probe that's supposed to be really good, I think fixed length would be level enough to then just compensate for. Hence how Prusa does it. That's how the Minion does it. That's technically how the Voron 2.4 does it as well. That's just a rigidly mounted bed. The reason it looks more like a rainbow is because there's other things blocking it. So you see that kind of separation. If that single RGBW LED is set to the like decent values and you see the whole area that it's illuminating, it will look basically white. It's because it gets like cut off. So because obviously the little individual diodes that are creating those three colors, if something cuts across them partly, then you're going to see some of the colors and not others. The more area that they're illuminating, like that it's shared, the more accurate that color is going to be. Does anybody else get hungry watching live streams? It just makes me peckish. I don't know if the acceleration, I might actually check. So they've got built into the firmware already. Let me just show you this. So when you do some calibration, it has a save config command at the end. Oh look, they've already done this as well. So this is a suggested input shaper configuration, the resonance values. But yeah, as I was saying, this save config is a command that you can run at the end of doing something like a Z offset or bed mesh. And this whole section, while it is just text, is driven by the save config command. So if you override this value yourself and then use save config, it will get changed again. So if you want to fix something, I mean, this is all fixed, but if you want to save something permanently, then you want to move it out of this save config section at the bottom. Just if you need it as a reference value, or you're going to do like multiple different probes or something and you want to save those values for and then switch between them, you might want to just move it up here, but otherwise it is basically just text. And then they've done a bed mesh at some point as well, presumably off the like, oh excuse me, I guess it would be the parent or the mother printer, whatever you call it, where they've just basically copied this whole firmware from. It's the way they set up the firmware is kind of weird, because this whole config is pretty much all macros. I think it would have been much simpler for users to call it macros.cfg and call this one printer.cfg, because when you look at the top, this is really what you expect to see when you look in printer.cfg. It's like your MCU, serial values, all this kind of stuff about the printer, like main configuration. So this is a little bit tiz-was. It's nothing bad really. There should be a printer section somewhere. Right down here. Normally this is like item number 2 on the list. Max acceleration 3000. Which is pretty low, but that's when you use input shaper to identify like optimum accelerations for doing perimeters when you're using input shaper. And then you use more test methods to find out like full max send it 100% accelerations, which this printer's not going to go like super bananas because it's moving an entire bed, but that's what you would do. Let's just reset this. This gets, well, it's useful on the screen, it's really difficult to actually use close up. Everything's too big. So this is at 2,500 at the moment. I'm guessing that's because of my profile. This is a standard V-Minion profile. Might be... yeah, default acceleration 2000 and perimeters 2,500. Don't know why it's quite so low. I'm pretty sure V-Minion can do more than that, but whatever. I never understand how to do the clipper bed screws leveling. Let's look it up, shall we? So the tool just moves it to each location. So that's pretty much what we did today. If you go back, so the whole bed screws adjust will just, you tell it where the screws are, and then as you go through it, it'll move the nozzle to those positions. You can do a paper test of that location and move on to the other locations. I'm not a massive fan of using bed screws adjust. It's a little bit... I mean, it's not bad. But it's better to, I don't know. If the printer's built well and designed well, you shouldn't need it, really. Yeah, it's basically the old way, but instead of having to move the coordinates manually, it just does it for you. But that's at least my understanding from reading it. I'm pretty sure that's what we did today. Again, we can check the firmware to see. End print, cancel print, pause print, resume print, load, unload. Just to a control F screw. Maybe not. Screw tilt calculate is the more advanced one, yeah. But that requires a probe. The other one, bed screw adjust, is just moving the nozzle to help you get a flat bed. This print's not looking too bad considering I've not tuned anything. It's maybe a little bit oozy, but my retraction was just a complete punt, so. Hotend fan. I think the Hotend fan was a 3010, probably something like that, because it's obviously inside. If you mean the part cooling fan, those are 4010 radial. Well, it's an actual fan with radial expel, radial output. Yeah, slicer profiles is one thing that I always mention about printers, because the slicer profile is really what makes the printer good. You can have any software and hardware you like, but if the profile is garbage, then you get garbage results. Likewise, if you have a naff printer, but you've really fine-tuned and dialed in your slicer profile, you can get good prints from a pretty naff printer. It's so important to the process to have a good slicer profile. I'm starting to not like this though, this is a problem, because it's causing much more strain on the other cables which don't want to be moving very much. We just need to make sure that this flops over here and not over there. So I think if we'll do a tuning stream. We'll do, maybe we want to get retraction right, but also mainly input shaper because that's fun to do. And also maximum acceleration and maximum speed. That'll get us a bit closer to some better settings for a slicer profile. Why has it lost focus? There we go. Ooh, it's a bit oozy. It's very oozy. Oozy boozy all over the place. Don't forget to like the video. Smash that like button. Yeah. Like the smash the like button, whatever it's... Oh. Put grease in the eyes, I think. That's not good. Seven millimeters. Okay, yeah. I was going to check that and didn't. I don't really enjoy using Cura. It's not much fun. I know the slicer's not meant to be fun, but I think maybe just because I've not used it for a long time, I'm not familiar where things are. I use Prusa Slicer and Super Slicer all the time. I mean, that interface thing that I showed in Cura, that's just annoying, isn't it? Form over function. For what, Matt? Ooh, that was... Sorry, microphone. Boop ba doop ba doo, boop ba doop ba doo. Boop ba doop ba doo, boop ba doop ba doo. I still don't enjoy the tabs in the Prusa Slicer UI. I find them a bit annoying. But I'm much more familiar with where settings are and how to do things. Is the printer form over function? No, I didn't think so. A little bit, the shroud, just because it was difficult to reinstall after I'd removed it. The rest of it's pretty standard for a bed slinger, really. The Hotend is not great. Oh, we could do a basic max flow test. I think it's also a PTFE lined Hotend. Well, this tube lined Hotend. I don't think it's all metal, so you're going to be limited temperatures on that as well. I don't know when we're going to do this theoretical extra stream. I've been so blooming busy at the moment. I've been so busy like shipping orders and doing other stuff. I've not had time to actually make a video for this week. That was part of the reason for doing this live stream today. And I also have another printer ready to do a live stream on. So lots of live streams. Maybe we'll have a couple of weeks of live streams and less videos. It would be really nice if everyone just placed their orders in my shop on one day, and then I could just do one day of shipping orders, and then I don't have to do it the rest of the week. But I do them pretty much every day at the moment. which is good for everyone that's buying things because it means they get their stuff quicker, which I intend to keep doing. It just means that I spend like half of every day shipping orders instead of doing videos. I quite enjoy doing it, it's nice. Speaking of extruder add-on, do you mean this? Boop, boop, boop. I was going to put it on the last printer I did a live stream on, but they have not shared their open source firmware. So I'm not going to be working with that printer anymore. So we've got it available for another printer now. Could plonky this on here. Bibbidi bobbidi boom. That could be a pretty good option. I would definitely do Monday. Most orders I get are, well, I wouldn't say most orders, but people really like ordering stuff on Sunday. I don't know why. They've like enjoyed their weekend, feel like spending some money and just buy stuff on Sundays. No idea. I could maybe do a couple of weeks, a couple of days a week. Can't believe I hadn't thought of that. Have you done a flow rate comparison test of the basic aluminium block and brass nozzle and copper block and nozzle? Most say copper is better and some say there is little difference. Never seen numbers. Aluminium and brass versus copper and aluminium, or copper and copper. I don't think there would be a difference, depending on things. Conductivity is better and capacity is better. So, but ultimately, I think the more fundamental properties of the Hotend are going to be the same if the geometry is the same. The light version. Is the light version the really fancy looking aluminium CNC'd frame one? A noticeable difference, especially with Wool's printing speed. That doesn't make much sense. How did you test it, DeathCube? Because the thermal conductivity of brass and aluminium is still way above what it is for any printing material. This is the H2 V2S Lite. Yeah. It looks like a bloody watch. It's super cool. I don't have one of those, unfortunately. Well, if you've got a different hot end, then of course it's going to be different speed. A normal Mark 8 hot end and brass nozzle can't go much higher than 80 millimeters a second with noticeable artifacts. And when upgraded to a Dragonfly, a different hot end, you could print faster. Yeah, that's because of the hot end, not because of the material. The only way to test them would be to use identical hot end. Sorry, I'm not trying to, I feel like I've been a bit rude there. I'm not trying to like poo-poo your testing. But the, if we're being scientific about what the testing is, then you need to change just the parameter that's being tested. So you need to have the same hot end, but just made out of a different material. It's quite a good alternative to the Benchy, this little golf cart. I quite like it. You can see how strong it is. 4 millimeters was not enough. I was going to go 6, and that would have been closer to the 7 that was maybe a better choice. I don't see a water-cooled version. Oh yes, the H2O extruder. Water cooling kit for 3D print. Is that it? I think this is an add-on kit. It doesn't even look better. Oh, by the way, for anyone that's thinking of getting this printer, which seems to perform pretty well, and having clippers pretty cool, there is a link in the description, which is an affiliate link. So it gives me a kickback from that sale, but it doesn't cost you anything extra. So if you do want to get these, I would very much appreciate it if you did use that link. It helps me a lot, and as I said, it doesn't cost you anything extra. We're at 97%. Feels like even the shortest live streams end up being 3 hours nowadays, eh? Just doing that flag on the top. I have on the Discord, I do have a channel specifically for affiliate codes. They've not been private, have they? Have I put them in a private channel or something? That would be hilarious. I'm pretty sure they're not. On the Discord, there's a they're not necessarily product specific. In that instance, they're mainly linked to like the whole shop, but it works just the same in theory. Yeah, so in the information section, there's a discounts and affiliates segment. So there's a bunch of links in there. Creality, Everyone, BQ, all sorts of codes and stuff for discounts, affiliates, all sorts of things. So yeah, don't forget to join the Discord if you haven't. That's a pretty neat little print. Pop, pop. Yeah, we were not quite close enough to the bed. So, ignoring the really poorly tuned retraction, or I say tuned, I mean guessed, and the fact that the first layer was not really set probably either. Had you not noticed that the discounts and affiliates channel was there? Maybe a lot of people have not noticed it. This is what my baggie looks like. It's such a cool filament, this. This is an Everyone filament, so you get gold on one side and like red on the other. It's nice and shiny. So of course the retraction is terrible, but the smoothness is pretty good. The overhangs are pretty reasonable. The fine little details on the posts are pretty good. Detail on the top looks quite nice. The only downside is the first layer, which is very easy to tune. You just need to actually do it. And of course, stringing retraction settings. About double what I actually had, and then we'll be there, and it should be fine. Pretty nice. So of course, thanks to BQ/BQ Tech for sending me BQ-Hurakan. Very nice to have Clipper arriving on bedslinger style printers. Hopefully not going to be the only one. I know there's that other printer, the like tool one. Can't remember what it's called. That's got a Clipper as well. But yes, very nice to be seeing. So yeah, that's it for me today, I think. I think we've got a few things: retraction, input shaper, max acceleration, maximum speed, and maximum flow rate as things to test. If I find time to do another live stream with this printer. I don't know when it's going to be. It might be a weird like midday time. So if you're watching this on YouTube after the fact, have a look at the channel. I might try and link it. Anyway, that's it for today. Buy yourself a VLMP if you plan to do some heated inserts. Or you can get some LEDs, Daybreak Neo LEDs, or a printer from BQ using the affiliate link down in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I shall see you in the next one. Goodbye. I've forgotten how to stop it.